Imagine a product so powerful that it generates profit without producing anything tangible. A product so invisible that most people you won't even realize they are buying it every single day of their lives. That product is debt, and far from being a neutral financial instrument, debt has been deliberately crafted into the most profitable product in human history. It has funded wars, toppled empires, and quietly drained the wealth of ordinary people. And yet, ask most people where debt came from or who designed it, and they couldn't tell you. The story of debt is the story of money and power itself. Debt, in its simplest form, is a promise. You borrow today and agree to pay tomorrow. But in that promise hides the core of financial control, interest. Charging interest turns the future into profit. For thousands of years, societies struggled with this idea. Ancient Mesopotamians recorded debts on clay tablets, but they also periodically wiped them clean in debt jubilees. Leaders knew that when too many citizens were trapped in obligations, the system would collapse. In the Hebrew Bible, debt forgiveness was even commanded every 50 years because debt was seen as something that could enslave entire populations if left unchecked. But as history moved forward, elites learned not to erase debt, but to weaponize it. In medieval Europe, the Catholic Church officially banned usury or charging interest. Yet, powerful banking families like the Medici in Florence found ways around it, building empires not on land or armies, but on lending. They financed kings and popes, receiving political leverage in return. Debt was becoming the engine of power. The real transformation came in the 17th century with the rise of state debt. When the Dutch Republic fought for independence from Spain, it raised money by selling bonds to its own citizens. Suddenly, war was no longer limited by the gold in a king's treasury. It could be financed by selling the future. The British perfected this model with the creation of the Bank of England in 1694. For the first time, a government didn't just borrow in emergencies. It lived on debt, rolling it over endlessly. Bankers became indispensable to the state because they managed the debt that funded empires. The profits were enormous. Lending to governments was the safest bet because governments could raise taxes to pay their creditors. This created a perfect loop. The more nations fought, the more they borrowed. The more they borrowed, the richer their creditors became. By the 19th century, the bond markets in London and Paris were the beating heart of global finance. Armies marched and colonies were conquered, all on borrowed money. As industrial capitalism spread, ordinary people were drawn into the cycle. Railroads and factories were built on credit. Eventually, the 20th century turned debt into an everyday consumer product. Mortgages, car loans, and credit cards became the architecture of modern life. There is a hidden cruelty in this. Debt doesn't just create profit once. Every interest payment is a transfer of wealth from the many to the few, repeated month after month. Unlike a product you buy and use, debt is designed to be permanent. A house bought with a 30-year mortgage can end up costing double its sticker price. What began as a promise often becomes a trap. By the middle of the 20th century, debt became the lifeblood of the global system. The Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944 institutionalized this. Organizations like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank began lending to nations, but a fund with structural adjustment conditions. Debt became a lever of political control. Nations that borrowed too much found their policies rewritten by their creditors in Washington or Europe. At the same time, banks discovered how to sell debt directly to households. The mortgage became the symbol of middle-class success. The word mortgage actually comes from an old French term meaning death pledge, a deal that only ends when the debt is paid or the person dies. Buying now and paying later became the normal way to live. For banks, this was a goldmine of compounding interest. For governments, it created an illusion of growth even when wages stayed the same. The danger is that the entire system is now addicted to this expansion. Banks don't want debts to be repaid quickly. They want them rolled over and refinanced. By the 1980s, this addiction hit a breaking point for developing countries. When interest rates spiked, nations like Mexico found themselves unable to pay. The solution offered was more loans under harsher terms. It became a cycle of borrowing to survive and then borrowing again to repay the interest. In the developed world, the financial industry found a new trick: financialization. Mortgages and loans were bundled together and sold as securities. Debt became a commodity that could be traded globally. This led directly to the 2008 financial collapse. Debt had been stretched beyond reality, and when it snapped, the global system trembled. But instead of changing the system, Governments bailed out the lenders and lowered interest rates to zero, encouraging even more borrowing. Today, global debt exceeds $300 trillion more than 3 times the entire world's annual economic output. We are living on a mountain of obligations that we celebrate as growth. A 20-year-old takes on student loans, and a couple signs a 30-year mortgage, both sold as investments. Meanwhile, inflation acts as a hidden tax that helps governments manage their own massive debts while reducing the value of the money in your pocket. The most striking feature of this system is how it concentrates wealth. Every interest payment moves money from the pockets of families to the balance sheets of the largest banks. Those with assets can borrow cheaply to buy more, while those without assets borrow expensively just to get by. Debt has become the mirror of class division. As we look toward the future, we see the rise of digital currencies and programmable money. This can make the debt system even more efficient, with interest rates and penalties adjusted in real time by algorithms. But history teaches us that efficiency for the creditor usually means less freedom for the debtor. The lesson is that debt is not neutral. It is a tool designed to turn your time into someone else's money. Real wealth isn't about how much credit you can access. It's about how much of your future you actually own. The system thrives on keeping you indebted, and understanding that is the first step toward financial freedom. History shows the pattern clearly. From clay tablets to modern Wall Street, debt enriches the few and burdens the many. We've been taught to call it progress, but we should recognize it for what it really is. The most successful business model ever designed. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more awesome content. Can't wait to see you in the next one.